A silent return, the deep space monitoring station Eternal Vigil, floated in the darkness between stars, its sensors sweeping the void for any sign of rebellion against the Krellian Empire. For 300 cycles, this station had stood watch over the dead zone, the vast emptiness where Earth once orbited its sun. Lieutenant Vextor adjusted his scanner arrays, running through the routine checks that had become meaningless tradition. Nothing ever came from the dead zone. Nothing could. The console erupted in warnings. Vextor's forearms moved frantically across the controls, trying to make sense of the impossible readings. A massive energy signature had appeared from nowhere, like a star being born in the darkness. But this was no star. The signature was artificial, technological, and worst of all, it matched patterns that should have been erased from existence 2 centuries ago. Admiral Zarketh stood on the command deck of the Imperial Dreadnought Supremacy, his crystalline form reflecting the light of 1,000 holographic displays. The emergency transmission from Eternal Vigil had reached him 17 minutes ago, and he still couldn't accept what he was seeing. The tactical display showed a vessel emerging from subspace, its configuration triggering memory banks that should have held only historical records of extinct species. The ship was ugly by Krellian standards. Where the Empire's vessels were elegant spirals of living metal and energy fields, this thing was all hard angles and armor plating. It looked like someone had taken a mountain of steel and beaten it into the rough shape of a warship. Scorch marks covered its hull, and entire sections appeared to be cobbled together from different vessels. But beneath the patchwork exterior, the power readings were staggering. Impossible, Zarketh whispered through his ventral speaking tubes. The humans were annihilated. We glassed their world, hunted their colonies, destroyed every ship, every station. The Senate declared them extinct. His tactical officer, a young Krellian named Thexal, trembled as she spoke. Admiral, the configuration matches human design philosophy, but the technology readings are beyond anything in our databases. It's as if they've evolved their systems far beyond what they had during the Great Purge. Captain Elena Reeves stood at the helm of humanity's greatest secret, the battleship Persistence. Her gray eyes, harder than the steel surrounding her, watched the Krellian fleet scramble to respond. 200 years of hiding, of building, of preparing, had led to this moment. She ran her fingers along the command console, feeling the vibration of engines that had been refined in the darkness between galaxies. How many of them, Marcus? She asked her tactical officer without turning. Marcus Chen, descendant of Earth's last admiral, checked his displays. 17 warships converging on our position, Captain. The Supremacy is moving to intercept. They're hailing us. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let them wait. Signal the colonies. Tell them the Persistence has made contact. The Phantom Fleet stands ready. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Each of them had been born in the shadow colonies, those hidden settlements built in the cosmic voids where no empire thought to look. They'd grown up on stories of Earth, of blue skies and green fields that their grandparents had seen burned to ash. They'd trained their entire lives for this moment. Captain, the communications officer, James Park, spoke up. The Krellians are demanding we identify ourselves. They're charging weapons. Open the channel, Elena commanded. Video and audio. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Zarketh in all his crystalline glory. His form pulsed with colors that Elena knew indicated shock and confusion. When he spoke, his translated voice carried disbelief. This is Admiral Zarketh of the Krellian Empire. You are in violation of galactic law by possessing prohibited technology. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. Elena stepped forward, letting the Admiral see her clearly. She wore the uniform of Earth Space Command, modified with 200 years of improvements. The badge on her chest bore Earth's image, the planet that no longer existed. Admiral Zarketh, she began, her voice carrying the weight of generations. I am Captain Elena Reeves, commanding officer of the United Earth ship Persistence. I believe your empire has some explaining to do. The silence that followed could have swallowed stars. On the Krellian ship, officers scrambled to verify what they were seeing. Humans didn't exist anymore. They couldn't exist. The Empire had made sure of that. Humans are extinct, Zarketh finally managed. The Galactic Senate decreed genocide, Elena interrupted. They sent your fleets to burn our world, to hunt our people like animals. They declared us too dangerous to live because we wouldn't kneel to your empire. But you made one mistake, Admiral. You thought you got us all. She gestured to her crew. When Earth burned, convoy ships were already in deep space. Generation ships you never knew about, launched in secret during the war's final days. We scattered to the void between galaxies, to places your empire would never think to look. For 200 years we've built, we've grown, and we've evolved. The tactical display on Zarketh's ship suddenly lit up with new contacts. Ships were emerging from subspace all around them, each one bearing the impossible signature of human technology. But these weren't the crude vessels from the historical records. These were something new, something that had been forged in the darkness of exile. 37 human vessels confirmed, Thexal reported, her voice barely a whisper. Admiral, their weapon systems? They're not using anything we recognize. Energy patterns suggest they've developed technology we've never seen, Elena continued, her voice now addressing not just Zarketh but the entire Krellian fleet. We didn't spend 2 centuries planning revenge, Admiral. We spent them asking a simple question. Why did the galaxy fear us so much that they had to destroy us? The answer, we realized, was potential. You saw what humanity could become and it terrified you. She paused, letting the words sink in. You were right to be afraid. But not for the reasons you thought. You feared we would conquer. Instead, we learned. Every species you've subjugated, every technology you've suppressed, every innovation you've crushed to maintain your order, we found them in the darkness. We gave them shelter. We learned from them. Behind Elena, her crew worked with practiced efficiency. They drilled this scenario thousands of times in simulation. The Persistence's main gun, a weapon that combined human kinetic technology with energy manipulation learned from refugees of dozen conquered worlds, powered up with a low hum. Admiral Zarketh, Elena's voice grew colder. You have 1 hour to contact your Senate. Tell them humanity has returned. Tell them we're not here for revenge but for justice. The age of the Krellian Empire's tyranny ends today. You can either help build something better, or you can stand aside. But if you raise weapons against us, you'll learn what 2 centuries of human innovation looks like when it's pointed at you. She cut the transmission. Around the Krellian fleet, human ships held position, weapons powered but not aimed. It was a message clearer than words. We could destroy you, but we choose not to. Yet Marcus turned to Elena. Captain, they're scrambling fighters. Let them, Elena replied. Activate the field. The Persistence shimmered, and suddenly space around it bent. The Krellian fighters found themselves flying through twisted space-time, their instruments useless, their weapons firing into distorted reality that led nowhere. It was technology born from human stubbornness and alien brilliance, impossible under the Empire's strict control of scientific advancement. On the Supremacy, Admiral Zarketh watched his fighters spin helplessly in space, that no longer obeyed conventional physics. His entire worldview, built on the certainty of Krellian superiority and human extinction, crumbled before his eyes. Sir, Thexal spoke urgently, the human ships, they're not just military vessels. I'm reading civilian signatures, cargo haulers, even what appear to be agricultural ships. It's not just a fleet, it's a civilization. Zarketh's form flickered through a spectrum of colors, emotions too complex for simple translation. The Empire had told him humans were monsters who needed to be destroyed. But monsters didn't bring their families to a confrontation. Conquerors didn't power weapons and then choose not to fire. The reckoning begins. The emergency session of the Galactic Senate had been called within minutes of Admiral Zarketh's transmission. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their forms shimmering through holographic projections from across the galaxy. At the center, the Krellian High Chancellor Vorast stood rigid, his crystalline body pulsing with barely controlled fury. The humans are extinct, Vorast declared for the 3rd time, as if repetition could make it true. This is clearly an elaborate deception by rebels using stolen technology. Senator Melvar of the Threnodi spoke up, her melodic voice carrying doubt. High Chancellor, the evidence suggests otherwise. Admiral Zarketh's readings show not just human biosignatures, but evolutionary adaptations consistent with 2 centuries of development. These aren't imposters. They're survivors. The chamber erupted in discussion, fear and disbelief mixing in a dozen languages. The genocide of humanity had been the Empire's darkest action, justified as necessary for galactic stability. Now that decision stood before them, very much alive and apparently evolved beyond their understanding. Back at the confrontation point, Captain Elena Reeves stood in the Persistence's war room with her senior staff. The holographic display showed the positions of Krellian reinforcements jumping in from across the sector. Within 6 hours, they would face the largest fleet assembly in recent history. 300 ships and counting, Marcus reported. They're calling in everything. Good, Elena replied. I want them all here when we make our statement. Her chief engineer, Yuki Tanaka, looked up from her console. Captain, the colony ships are safely positioned. If this goes badly— It won't, Elena interrupted. Because we're not playing by their rules anymore. Sarah, are your people ready? Sarah Okonkwo, chief of the ship's Special Operations Unit, nodded. The Whisper teams are in position on 17 Krellian worlds, awaiting your signal. The Whisper teams were humanity's answer to conventional warfare. Not soldiers, but teachers, healers, and engineers who had spent years infiltrating Empire worlds. Not to conquer, but to connect. They'd found allies among species who remembered what the galaxy was like before Krellian dominance, before creativity and innovation were crimes punishable by orbital bombardment. Captain, James announced, Admiral Zarketh is hailing again. The screen activated, showing Zarketh alongside several other high-ranking Krellian officers. The Admiral's demeanor had changed. Where before there was shock, now there was calculation. Captain Reeves, Zarketh began formally. The High Senate has authorized me to offer terms. Humanity will be granted protected status, a colony world far from Empire space, and guarantee of non-aggression if you surrender your ships and technology. Elena laughed, and the sound made several Krellian officers step back from their screens. Admiral, you still don't understand. We're not asking for your permission to exist. We're informing you that we do. As for your terms— She nodded to Sarah. Across 17 worlds, the Whisper teams activated. Not weapons, but broadcasting arrays they'd built in secret. Suddenly, every screen, every communication device, every public display in the Empire showed the same thing. The burning of Earth. But not from the Empire's sanitized records. This was raw footage, recovered from black boxes and refugee ships. Children screaming, cities turning to glass, the systematic hunting of civilian vessels. Then the broadcasts changed, showing what came after: humans and freed aliens working together, technologies developing without Empire restrictions, art, music, and literature flowering in the darkness between stars, children of a dozen species playing together in hidden colonies where the word extinction had no meaning. Every citizen of your empire is seeing this right now, Elena explained to the horrified Krellian command. They're learning what you did in their name, and what grew from the ashes you created. We're not conquerors, Admiral. We're gardeners, and we're going to help the galaxy bloom again. The response was immediate and violent. Krellian ships opened fire, energy beams and plasma torpedoes filling space with deadly light. But human ships moved like water, their upgraded drives bending space-time in ways that made targeting nearly impossible. Return fire came not as destruction but as precision, surgical strikes that disabled weapons and engines without breaching hulls. The Battle of Station Omega-7 would be remembered as the moment the galaxy changed, not because humanity won through superior firepower, but because they chose not to use it. Every disabled Krellian ship was immediately surrounded by human medical vessels, offering aid to any injured. Every pilot who ejected was rescued, treated with dignity, and given a choice: return to the Empire or stay and learn what humanity had become. On the bridge of the Supremacy, Admiral Zarketh watched his fleet being systematically neutralized by an enemy that refused to be what history said they were. His weapons officer turned to him, confusion evident in her coloration. Admiral, they're not trying to destroy us. Their targeting is deliberately avoiding critical systems. Why show such mercy to an empire that showed them none? Before Zarketh could answer, his personal console activated with an encrypted message. It was from Captain Reeves, meant for his eyes alone. Admiral, the message read, 200 years ago, your predecessor, Admiral Krenvor, gave the order to glass Earth. But he also did something else. He secretly evacuated 3 human colonies before the fleets arrived, claimed they were already destroyed. We found his logs in the ruins of Outpost 12. He couldn't stop the genocide, but he tried to save some of us. His descendants are with us now, living free among the colonies. You have a choice, Admiral. Be the officer who fires the last shots of a dying empire, or be the one who helps build something better. The decision is yours. Zarketh's form shifted through colors no Krellian had names for. Around him the battle continued, but its outcome was already clear. Human ships moved through space like they owned it, their hybrid technology making a mockery of Empire tactics. But more importantly, with every disabled ship they aided, with every broadcast showing the truth, support for the Empire crumbled. Reports flooded in from across Krellian space. Subjugated species were rising, not in violence but in solidarity. The Whisper teams had done their work too well. For years they'd been planting seeds of change, showing that cooperation yielded better results than domination. Now those seeds were blooming all at once. "Admiral," Thexal reported, her voice hollow, 17 sectors have declared independence. The outer colonies are refusing orders. The Senate is... She paused, unable to believe what she was reading. The Senate is discussing terms of surrender. Elena Reeves stood on her bridge, watching the tactical display change by the minute. Red hostile markers turned yellow, then green as ship after ship stood down. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. "Open a channel to all ships," she commanded. "All frequencies, all languages." Her image appeared on every screen in the fleet, human and Krellian alike. Behind her stood her crew, humans who had never known Earth, alongside aliens who had fled to humanity's hidden colonies seeking freedom. 200 years ago, Elena began, the Galactic Empire tried to extinguish humanity's light. They failed. Not because we were stronger, but because ideas can't be killed with orbital bombardments. The idea that beings can work together as equals. The idea that diversity makes us stronger. The idea that the galaxy is big enough for all of us to thrive. She paused, looking directly at the camera. "Today marks the end of one era and the beginning of another. We don't seek to rule over you as you ruled over us. We offer partnership. We offer the technologies we've developed in exile, freely shared. We offer a chance to build something where no species lives in fear of extinction, for the crime of being different. To the Krellian Empire, we say this. Your time of dominance is over, but your people's future is just beginning. Join us in building something better or step aside. But know that humanity has returned, not as conquerors but as liberators, and this time we're not alone." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Admiral Zarketh made a decision that would echo through history. He powered down his weapons, turned to his crew, and spoke words no Krellian admiral had ever said before. "Stand down all weapons. Signal the fleet. We surrender." But it wasn't truly a surrender. It was an awakening. The news spread faster than light itself. The humans were back, and they'd brought with them every species the Empire had tried to suppress. They'd turned extinction into evolution, genocide into genesis. The Persistence adjusted its course, heading not for the Krellian homeworld but for the coordinates where Earth once orbited. There was no planet there now, just debris and echoes of a murdered world. But as the human fleet gathered, they began construction of something new. Not a weapon, but a monument. A space station built from the fusion of every technology, every culture, every species that had found shelter with humanity in the dark. They called it Haven Prime, and its first rule was simple: all are welcome, none are supreme. The galaxy watched in awe as former enemies worked side by side, as technologies long forbidden were shared freely, as art and science flourished without fear of imperial censure. The Krellian Empire didn't fall in fire and conquest. It dissolved like ice in the spring, its citizens choosing freedom over fear, cooperation over control. Elena stood in Haven Prime's command center 6 months later, watching ships from 50 different species dock at the station. Admiral Zarketh stood beside her, his crystalline form now bearing human rank insignia, a symbol of the integrated fleet they were building. "Your ancestors would be proud," Zarketh said, his translated voice carrying something that might have been respect. "All our ancestors would be proud," Elena corrected. "We're not rebuilding humanity, Admiral. We're building something new, something the Empire feared so much they tried to destroy us to prevent it." "And what's that?" Zarketh asked. Elena smiled, this time with genuine warmth. "A galaxy where every species can reach its full potential, where diversity is strength, not threat, where the only extinction we fear is the extinction of hope itself." Outside the station's viewports, the stars shone with the light of 1,000 civilizations, no longer united under tyranny but in purpose. Humanity had returned not to reclaim what was lost, but to help build what could be. The Empire had created its own downfall the day it decided one species was too dangerous to live. They'd been right about one thing: humanity was dangerous. Dangerous to tyrants, dangerous to oppression, dangerous to any force that would deny others the right to exist and thrive. The war was over before it truly began. Won not through superior firepower, but through superior vision. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in the stars themselves. You cannot kill an idea whose time has come. And humanity's time, despite all attempts to prevent it, had finally arrived.